Good afternoon, everyone. It is now 2:01 p.m. and we're back from recess. And I'd like to welcome everybody to your Senate chamber. And just to let you know, we are live on Facebook, NMI Legislature webpage, Facebook page, and also we are streaming live on cable channel 23. I want to advise everyone that if we do need to go into recess, Facebook will continue to stream live. Saludo para todos Samzo ni Maneega. Benvenido para todos Samzo Ginige Senate Chamber. At this time, I'd like to take care of some housekeeping rules first. We ask that everyone please turn off or put into silent mode your electronic devices. This committee appreciates minimal distractions during sessions. I also want to introduce you to the Legislative Bureau professionals that are assisting the committee this afternoon. First, we have our legal counsel, Mr. Joe Bermudez, legislative assistant assigned to the EAGI committee, Mr. Devin Macaronis, in front of me. To my right, we have our IT manager, Mr. Jonathan Diaz. And to keep order and decorum throughout the whole session, we have our Sergeant at Arms, Mr. Ben Terlahi. We have gone through the motions of adopting the agenda and all the other parliamentary procedures required, and then we went on recess this morning. I would now like to invite Mr. Oscar Babata, the Special Assistant for Administration, and the nominee to join us at the table here. And Mr. Babata's role is to introduce the nominee to the committee. And today's nominee is Mr. Ray Naraja Yumul, nominated to the position of Secretary, Department of Public Works. Mr. Babata, you may begin when you are ready.
Buenas tardes, Madam Chair, and good afternoon to you and your esteemed committee members in this August EAGI Committee of the Senate. Hopaday dan Tiro, Chairwoman Bauta, and the honorable members of your EAGI Committee. For the record, my name is Oscar M. Babauta, Special Assistant for the Administration of the Office of the Governor Palacios and that of Lieutenant Governor David M. Apateng. I wish to thank you and also thank the administration for the opportunity to appear before you today. Second time. I'm here to introduce our administration's nominee to the Department of Public Works, none other than my former colleague in the House of Representatives, former Representative Ray Naraja Yumul, who is currently sitting down on the front with me to my left. Madam Chair and members, Mr. Yuma is a professional individual with over 30 years of experience in both public and private sector. He was the former vice president and now the president and general manager of YCO Corporation. He was also an elected representative representing Precinct 3 for the 14, 15, 16, and 17 Sinamay House of Representatives. In the House of Representatives, where he chaired the House Standing Committee on Commerce and Tourism at one time. He was also elected as a senator representing the 3rd Senatorial District for the 18th Commonwealth Legislature, wherein he served as the floor leader of the Senate and was the chairman of the Senate Standing Committee on Federal Relations and Independent Agencies, as well as the Senate Standing Committee on JGL. He also served as special advisor for special projects under the office of former Lieutenant Governor Victor B. Hokuk before being a member and partner of Pacific Foods LLC, which franchises IHOP restaurant and adjacent ramen restaurant. He also served as a special advisor and Senate liaison to the House of Representatives for the 21st Sinamay Legislature under the Senate and Senate President Victor B. Hokuk, and was also the CEO at one time for Imperial Pacific International Sinamay LLC, better known as Best Sunshine. Mr. Yumo has a Bachelor's of Business Administration from the National University in San Diego. California. He is also a veteran serving our country in Operation Iraqi Freedom with the 29th Infantry Combat Division. And I'm glad that during this term where he served with me in the House of Representatives, and I was glad back then to see him come back alive. Governor Pelosi's and Lieutenant Governor Apatang placed their full trust and confidence in Mr. Yumo to serve as the Secretary of Public Works. I know he is ready to answer any inquiries that you may have, each of you may have, for his plan with the department and any other uh, concerns that you may have regarding public works and projects within the department. His long history of professional experience, credentials, and commitment to the Commonwealth in this capacity makes him a viable candidate, and we kindly ask for your expeditious and favorable consideration in this committee and towards the full support of the full Senate in the coming weeks, if not months. And hopefully that would be soon than later, so that we may continue to stabilize our projects in our Commonwealth government for the benefit of our entire Commonwealth people. Once again, Madam Chair, Sidus Masi, Gilisol, and thank you for the opportunity again to introduce Mr. Yumo to this August body. Thank you once again, and good afternoon, and buenas tardes para todos Samso.
Thank you, Mr. Babalta. I would now like to open the floor for public comments. If you're providing public comments, I ask that you please state your name for the record and the entity you represent. And if you have any written comments you're reading from, please hand it over to our Sergeant at Arms.
Good afternoon. Sorry, I don't have a written comment, but I have my this technology's phone. I'll read it. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Selena Roberto Babalta, and members of the Senate. My name is Lorraine Saman Villagomez, and I am here in my personal capacity. Thank you for giving me the opportunity today to come before you in the nomination of Mr. Ray Naraja Yumul. I seek your support in the confirmation of Mr. Yumul. His vast experience in both this private and government is a reflection that he is qualified to lead the Department of Public Works in its goals and objectives. The nomination from the Honorable Governor Arnold Palacios and Lieutenant Governor Dave Apatang is a reflection of their confidence and in his ability to take the Department of Public Works. I seek that his nomination and confirmation be within 24 hours? No, but in all seriousness, I've had a dealing with him this short period of time under the acting capacity, and he is ready, and I am confident that he will take Department of Public Works to its the highest level of achievement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Villagomez. The floor is still open for public comments.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of this body. My name is Peter Camacho. I am the Director for Administrative Services Division. Um, I have submitted my letter of to the nominee, and although Mr. Yumi is new to the department, his vast experience as a military serviceman, working for the private sector, and as a former legislature, I believe that with all this experience combined, and since his appointment as acting secretary, I believe that he has the ability to run the department and make sure that the mandates that are given to this department, DPW, are are maximized and you know uh, moving forward. And I'm pretty sure that all of this body would understand that the PW has a critical role in moving projects. So I have he has my full support and in becoming the next public secretary of public works. So I asked this body to confirm him so that we can move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Camacho. The floor is still open.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dante Yumul, and all I like to say is, he is the one. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yumul. The floor is still open for public comments.
Madam Chair and distinguished honorable members of this committee, appearing before you today is Mr. Felipe Q. Atali from the beautiful city of Gualarai, where the newly inaugurated and elected governor Arno I. Palacios residing. Fortunately, I am also within the city of Gualarai, but is far distance from the governor. Before I proceed, Madam Chair, I would like to extend my belated warmest nonpartisan congratulations to all of you who have successfully made this hardly contested election and costly, and particularly to the governorship of this election. Today, Madam Chair and members of your distinguished members of this honorable body, I believe you will agree with me to say that today is a jubilation day for the people of the Commonwealth. Jubilations in a sense that it is the beginning of the building trust for this administration. And we have seen over the past years, as once said by the governor too at your hearing in the House, that there was a dark cloud hanging over the CNMI. And this darkness of cloud is attributed with the voluminous problems within the government. And I submit to you that since the inception of this building trust, we're beginning to see that gradually the darkness that's hanging over the CNMI is fading, and it is shining upon you that the darkness is beginning to work with the building trust. I believe we have just heard the testimony as presented by the titular Honorable former Speaker Oscar M. Babauta. He has presented an eloquent support on the nominee and also other speakers. But to avoid redundancy and cause a bore to your committee, I would just like to go on record that I too endorse and I be considered as one of those who are in agreement with the titular former Speaker Oscar M. Babauta. Madam Chair, as a former member of the DPW 2022 Transition Committee under the leadership of the nominee with you. It gives me a great honor and pleasure to now introduce to you in my capacity as a member who has worked with him during the 2022 Transition Committee. At this time, I would like, before I formally introduce to him, it will be reminiscent on my part not to recognize those people who are with him this afternoon. You have just heard his younger brother, the Honorable Ralph Yumo, who is also here. And if he's still here, may I ask you, Honorable Ralph Yumo, to please stand behind his brother, but not inside here. Please rise and stay. And also to that, Madam Chair, I would also like to go on record that those of you who are in the gallery and in full support for the nominee, please rise and continue to rise until the resolution is finished read. May I ask the gallery people who are in support to please rise up? Rise. Full support. Mr. Mosman? Mr. Speaker? That itself, Madam Chair, is the evidence of undisputed facts that none of the guests in the gallery are not in standing. At this time, Madam Chair, without any objection from your committee, I would like to ask one of the members of the DPW transition to read the resolution that was presented to the Honorable Chairman Ray Yumo and read it in its entirety. And I would like to submit this for the record that this is the resolution that was adopted by the committee and presented to him. And at the end of this resolution, the tears, the red eyes of the chairman beginning to be red, and gradually the tears is dropping down from joyful and admiration of the committee. The resolution itself outlined the complete history, how he has been nominated to the level of the governorship. I'd like to note for this honorable members committee that the position of the Department of Public Works is not a given, but you deserve this. The weight of the resolution has a great weight, and that for that reason, including the former Speaker Babauta, fully endorsed, together with the Executive Director, Mr. Jonas Regis, his assistant, Oscar Babauta, and Mr. Clyde Norita. So at this time, Madam Chair, I would like to ask Kimberly to please step forward and read the resolution, and I will submit this for the record as Exhibit 1, together with the resolution upon the completion.
Thank
Ms.
you. We
Kimberly?
made part of the record, but in the interest of time, we will forego reading the resolution at this time.
Thank you. Ms. Kimberly, can you please step forward?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Senate members, and Mr. Yumul. Hi. My name is Kimberly Apatang Asebo, and I was part of the DPW 2022 transition team
Okay.
member. Yeah, and I'd like today, I'm here to read a resolution of commendation and profound appreciation to the distinguished 2022 DPW transition chairman Ray Yumul. Whereas Chairman Ray Yumul was appointed by the Honorable Arnold and Dave 2022 Executive Transition Directors to chair the Department of Public Works. And
Excuse me,
I'm
Miss.
sorry. Yes.
Kimberly.
Yes.
In the interest of time,
Yes.
you may submit the resolution
Okay.
and it will be made part of our records.
Okay.
But there's still other people who would like to make public comments, and in the interest of time, I'm sorry, but we will just accept it in written form.
Okay. All right. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And would like now to submit the resolution that was adopted by the committee under the leadership of Chairman Ray Yumo. At this time, Madam Chair, it gives me a great pleasure and honor to introduce to you officially on behalf of the DPW transition under his leadership. At this time, I would like to ask Ray Yumo, please stand so you can be recognized. Can you look the other? Those who are- Finally, Madam Chair, I believe it is clear and possibly have exceeded my burden of the preponderance of evidence overwhelmingly in full support of the nominee itself, including the representative from the governor's office, the titular, former Speaker Oscar M. Babauta. With that, Madam Chair, the resolution also speaks loud as it is that in full support with this nominee. At this time, I would like to suggest and recommend highly that having to hear all this undisputed evidence of facts, I think you will believe on me that the verdict of this hearing, confirmation hearing, is nothing more than CONFIRMED. Mr. Chairman, can you pronounce that? What is the pronunciation, please? I cannot hear. So that itself conclude my testimony that the verdict of this hearing, Madam Chair, is nothing but to confirm the nominee based on the facts of evidence that we have just presented. I thank you for this opportunity. And also, lastly, Madam Chair, I would also like to insert this for the record for the information of the committee, what makes up the Department of Public Works and what constitute the sixth department of the Public Works.
Before you proceed, Mr. Atalik, I want to remind you, you have provided public comments for the last 12 minutes. Do you know how much longer you will take?
Yes, I do.
Approximately how many more minutes do you need? Do you think you can wrap it up in the next 2 minutes?
In fact, Madam Chair, I think I have covered everything. And I would like to personally extend my personal congratulations to the distinguished, phenomenal Chairman Ray Yumo. Congratulations. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the
Si Dios moce, Señor Atalik, the floor is still open for public comments.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. I'll make this brief, but I do want to say that I've known Mr. Yumo, Ray Yumo.
Sir, may I have you state your name for the record?
Did I say Joey Ariola?
Okay.
Yeah. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Maybe I missed it.
Yeah, and I said I won't. I'll try to be brief. I just want to say that I've known Ray Yumo for both personally and professionally. And we've heard from Mr. Babauta and the exhaustive list of accomplishments of Mr. Human. That speaks for itself. I think he checks all the boxes that that a nominee for the Department of Public Works requires. Like his brother said, he's the one. Or I maybe I'm paraphrasing it, but I like to say too that that Governor Palacios couldn't have appointed a better candidate. I think with his business background, business acumen, his uh, experience as a lawmaker, and just as a person. Like I said, I've known him uh, for a number of years, and I think most importantly, because this position of the Secretary of the Department of Public Works is essentially an administrator position, and in order to run that department effectively, you have to have that leadership skills, and he possesses that. And I think he would be an ideal, uh, a nominee for the position. I heard also from Mr. Babauta that he hopes that the committee and the Senate in general will confirm his nomination expeditiously. Uh, and he said within weeks or within months. And I say not within months, because I've been down this road before as a legal practitioner. He's now appointed as acting, and he's good for a good number of days, but not months. We want him in, and I think also it serves the DPW, serves the DPW's best interest if we can confirm and everybody can settle in and know that they have their man, their Secretary, Department of Public Works, Mr. Ray Yumo. So with that, I just give my full support for his nomination, and I pray that he is in fact confirmed. Thank you.
Cesar Masi, Senor Ariola. The floor is still open.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, senators, members of the audience, and those tuning in. I'm here as in my own personal capacity. My name is Ed Probst. I have known this fine gentleman for most of my life, since we were kids, growing up in Navy Hill back in the day. Our friendship stands long, many years. I've seen so much that he's done in public service, but also in the private sector. He's as a little kid, he helped his family's business succeed and thrive. He's taken on many challenges throughout his life. He's a veteran. He's served our people of the Commonwealth. He's served proudly, and I think one of the greatest things about him is how sincere he is. He's very sincere. His integrity is beyond question, and he is somebody that, if I ever need to hear the truth about something, he's somebody that I would rely on. I think that we are facing some critical times, some difficult times up ahead. I can't think of somebody better, more qualified than Ray Umo to lead the Department of Public Works as a secretary. He is very knowledgeable. We've heard already his credentials. I don't have to repeat them. He does, of course, not just meet the requirements, but exceeds them. And he's got great leadership abilities. I think he has the ability to work with everyone well, and also to give people the benefit of the doubt. I think that's important. I think heart, character, integrity, and the willingness to get the job done is just a few things that I admire about my dear friend, my dear compire, and I really am very proud that he's wearing a barong today. So I think that's a bonus. But well dressed. So thank you. I hope you consider this. I do also agree. I hope that this can move expeditiously. I think there's a lot of projects with our infrastructure that need to be moving, and we need them there for that to do that job. So thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Edwin Probst. The floor is still open.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Chairwoman and members of the EIGI. EAGI. I'm here. My name is Ralph Yumul. I'm here in full support of my younger brother, Ray Yumul, who's been appointed to be the secretary of DPW. Working with Ray, we worked together here in the House when he was a Senate and I was a incoming freshman legislator. So I learned a lot from him. He's someone that can take charge. He understands the department, and one good advantage he has a good consultant, an engineer, living out. I believe he's in California right now. His own dad. That's not going to charge. So that's going to be some saving to DPW. Putting the jokes aside, but it's true. My parents are very happy. I think my father's very happy that he's been nominated, and I think he would do really well. He understands DPW side. He's been in Ways and Means. He was a chairman, so he understands what it takes to lead. So with that, I hope to hear the blessing of this body to approve him as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Ralph Yumul. The floor is still open.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, honorary members, guests. My name is Tama Inus. I'm the Director for the Energy Division. I don't have a written report, endorsement, but however, I myself, along with our Energy Division team, are here to fully endorse our Secretary, Ray Yumul, and we look forward to the confirmation and we look forward to working with him, as I know he will support the whole Department of Public Works. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Enos. The floor is still open. There are none. We will proceed. Today, the EAGI committee is tasked to examine and vet the nomination of Mr. Ray Naraja Yumul, nominated to the position of Secretary, Department of Public Works. This responsibility is unique to the Senate, and that is why we are here today. This nomination comes at a time of a stormy financial year, and each nominee is asked to give more than they are asked and to be resourceful, most especially. And each of the members of this committee has a responsibility to ask probing questions of the nominee in order to determine their temperament, their character, their qualification, beyond any academic or professional standing. And so now I would like to ask the nominee to please rise while the legislative assistant, Mr. Macaranas, will administer your oath.
Mr. Ray N. Yumul, you do solemnly swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you shall give in the matter at hand shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I do. Thank you.
You may be seated. At this time, I'll recognize the nominee if you would like to make any opening statements to the committee.
Thank you. Yes, I do. Good afternoon, Honorable Chairwoman Senator Selena Babauta, and members of this August body. Hafaday Tiro, good afternoon, and maganda hapon po. I had to say that right because I was corrected the last time. And Honorable Chair again, and members, I appear before you as the nominee for the position of Secretary of the Department of Public Works, and I thank our Honorable Arnold I. Palacios, Governor, and David M. Aptang, Lieutenant Governor, for their placing their trust in me. However, before I continue, I would like to thank all those that have taken the time to write letters of recommendations and to those that have spoken on my behalf here. I would also like to thank my family and friends who have taken the time away from their busy schedule to come here to witness today's hearing. I also, excuse me, also in the gallery is some of the staff of the Department of Public Works, many whom have worked in this department for decades. They are filled with institutional knowledge, ripe and always ready to provide our community with civil and professional service and guidance so that we may continue to live in a safe, clean, and orderly society. For those that do not know me, I was born and raised here in Saipan. I spent my childhood life in Puerto Rico and Navy Hill, but spent most of my weekends and summers in the village of San Roque, where my mother Frances is from. My father Jesse is a civil engineer from the Philippines. And a side note, for those that didn't notice, I am wearing formal attire today. From the island of the Philippines, Barong. I grew up being around and watching my parents' work ethics as they build out our family business. As a young kid growing up, I most especially observed my father's engineering skills as he um, constructed buildings and homes and industrial complexes of the time. He was really good at it. Whenever he could, he would even perform the surveying work, the pre engineering, and even the engineering design. When construction works um, are for in house use, he would even be the project manager, also known as a PM, construction manager, CM, and even be the internal quality control and the so called building inspector. At the time, this was the 1970s and early 80s, before the Department of Public Works passed into law back in the sixth legislature. Over the years, my dad would always probe me and my brothers about what we were going to be when we grew up. Of course, my answer would always be, I want to be an engineer like you, Dad. I needed to be on his good side. So is what I was thinking. Well, going into my final years of high school, my dad says to me, son, you should go into business management. Then I said to myself before asking him, why? Did he see my grades and especially my math grade? I said to him, why don't you want me to be a civil engineer like you? I do kind of look like him, anyways. He answered back, well, we have a family business and I need you guys to manage it when I retire. You could always hire a bunch of engineers to do the work you need done. So, business school it is. After graduating from college, armed with a Bachelor's of Business Administration, I worked in California as a human resource officer in an industrial manufacturing plant with over 700 employees under my management. I had a small staff of one full-time and two part-time employees. I was poised to take the helm as the plant's HR manager to my boss at the time, a guy named Floyd, who was on an extended leave for medical reasons, as was set to retire within a time's year frame. However, before that time came, I got a call from my father who said, son, if you don't come back to Saipan now, you may not want to as you get further into your career. Well, I don't think I need to explain any further what my decision was. After my return to the cinema, I worked with my parents and I was the company HR, among other tasks. I recall vividly how the cinema managed immigration. We all know where that went, eventually being controlled by U.S. Congress. I do going forward, I knew that I wanted to try something different, and I threw my hat into the political arena. And I'm especially thankful to those voters who have entrusted me by giving me the opportunity to be representative for them in Precinct 3. I had spent 5 terms in the Sinamay legislature from the 14th on through the 18th legislature, exiting out as a senator. After stepping away from the legislative arena, I went back to work in the private sector and eventually became CEO of Imperial Pacific International, where I tried my best to upright that company so that we can prosper. However, financial constraints and a lot of bureaucratic red tape, of course, ensued, and of course, politics got involved. And I had no choice but to leave the company. Now, I am back as your nominee as Secretary of the Department of Public Works. And since my appointment as Acting Secretary on January 30 of this year, I have spent numerous days and weeks understanding the daily operations of the department. I am in a way thankful to this body for scheduling my appointment hearing today, which allowed me just over 8 weeks to absorb what I would call the corporate culture of the department. And I can say that overall the department is functioning satisfactorily. Of course, the as the infamous saying goes, there's always room for improvement. Due to the termination of ARPA-funded staff within the DPW, the department's head count had dropped from 157 to just over 89. As a recap, the Department of Public Works has 6 divisions: the Administrative Services Division, Building Safety Code Division, Energy Division, Technical Services Division, Roads and Grounds Division, and the Solid Waste Division. If you would allow me, I will briefly go over the divisions and will focus on a couple of divisions that need serious attention. First, the Energy Division, more commonly referred to as the Energy Office. This office has a staff of 6. The office's major function is to manage 2 key federally funded grants. The first is the Weatherization Assistance Program, or WAP grant, and the second, the U.S. Department of Energy State Energy Program, SEP. At this time, all I can say is that the office is operating satisfactorily and is moving along as intended. Second, the Building Safety Code. The division has been vacant for quite some time. The previous administrator had retired more than 5 years ago, I believe. The position requires the person to have a practicing engineer's license, more commonly known as a PE license. The current acting building safety official is Igisani Salazar, who's in the audience. Although he is not a licensed PE here in the Sinamay, he does hold a license and is a graduate of an accredited engineering school in the Philippines. And I hold him at a high standard to that. Eventually, I will be requesting that this body raise the salary ceiling for practicing engineers to allow me to hire such person. Benefits I see is that returning engineering students may want to intern within the department under the supervision of an in-house PE. The division also needs periodic training and certifications of the Building Safety Code to better advise and guide permit applicants. Solid Waste Division needs attention as well. First, the landfill cell number 1 is at around 80% capacity. It will need to be capped eventually. Similar to how the old Puerto Rico dump, now called the Governor Eloy S. Enos Peace Park, it will cost the department upwards of $4.5 million to cap. My concern is that my office is constantly being inundated with requests for tipping fee waivers from government offices and municipalities, and the continued suspension of the earmark of the solid waste tax that is the funding source for the capping and development of future cells, absent federal grants. The loss of income impacts the ability for the Sinamay government to build up funds to properly close, expand, and manage. Like I said, the landfill cells, and also to operate transfer stations. We are poised to opening 2 new ones, one in Coblerville and another in Cagman. So eventually, I will need to remind these departments and agencies that we have an obligation under Title 40 of the U.S. Code of Federal Regulations to protect the environment. And eventually, I'll be ratcheting down to stay in compliance. Roads and Grounds Division now only has 2 teams to deal with the road shoulders and patch repairs of our federally funded highways, and also provide, coincidentally, grave and burial services for the Veteran Cemetery. We do that without compensation, and we're more than happy to do so. However, again, because of our limited resources in manpower, it will become a challenge after losing ARPA staff. Once Route 36, the highway that connects Talafofo to Calavera and Bird Island, is completed, it will need an additional team to maintain that stretch of highway. We have minimal equipment on the ready to assist in stormwater drainage, cleaning, and road repairs. Namely, we have 1 water truck, 1 vacuum truck, 1 grader, and 3 backhoes. We also have 3 riding mowers, 2 of which are currently non-operational. We have a hydro mower that is waiting for parts, 1 plow mower, and 1 landscaper's truck, affectionately known as on the road. And it is currently non-operational. For our teams, we have 3 emergency vehicles. So it is a challenge for my Roads and Grounds team to work the entire island of Saipan. I have not received or reported yet to you regarding Rhoda and Tinian, as I'm not able to travel to those 2 islands because of budgetary shortfalls. The Technical Services Division, which has 3 sections, the Program and Engineering and an Inspection section under the Highway Administrator. This section oversees our federally funded highways. We have Traffic and Highway Maintenance section that maintains all traffic signages and traffic signal lights, primarily on the island of Saipan. The Administrative Accounting Program section handling the financials such as drawdowns. However, I would like to focus on the Architectural Engineering Inspection and Right-of-Way section. That is the actual section name. 1 Architectural Engineering Inspection and Right-of-Way. As you know, the legislature passed Public Law 20-52 on April 7, 2018, that places the authority to promulgate rules and regulations within the right-of-way. Since its enactment into law, the department has not moved forward with the intent of the law. I do not know why the prior secretary had not moved on it. I have read some of the issues coming from the Attorney General's office, but I am now in communication with the Attorney General's office to discuss how to go about implementing it. And I have sent a letter to such effect. And I will be more than happy to go into details with you guys as you ask your questions. Other notables that are in the works, we are working on online access to DPW's applications and informational website so that anyone who needs to download appropriate forms may do so online prior to coming to the offices so that they do not have to spend needless time making multiple trips. We'll be promulgating a new fee structure for our floodplain survey requests. It's now mandatory with insurance companies, mortgage lending institutions, and the like. So we will be expanding that service. We'll be asking for the restoration of the taxes earmarked to the solid waste revolving fund to bring it back to 10%. Public Law 1342 reduced it to 7%. And lastly, as you are somewhat aware, the Office of Grants Management, in conjunction with BCQ and CRM, is poised to kick off a redemption program for aluminum cans at the rate of 5 cents per can. I had a brief discussion with Mr. Epi Cabrera, and the reason why it was shifted to BCQ CRM was because apparently in the past, DPW was not able to manage that program. So I am in discussions with him to bring it back after this program ends in August. I will be meeting with you, the legislative body, to look into um, allowing the Department of Public Works to continue after this program ends, and the data that has been collected to see how we can continue it indefinitely. With that, Madam Chair and members, I'm open to questions.
Thank you, Mr. Yumul, and thank you for your service to our nation. At this time, I will open the floor to the members who wish to ask questions of you. And first, I would like to recognize Senator Donald Benglonier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon and welcome to everyone here and to the nominee, Mr. Yumul. First of all, as the chair, also acknowledge thank you for your service to the nation and our Commonwealth. I just want to say that the Rhoda delegation has had the pleasure to meet with Acting Secretary Yumul on several occasions to get updates on several road projects on Rhoda. What I do want to hear from you, Secretary, or what are some of the challenges? And just elaborate more. I'm not sure if I think I missed it, but what are some of the challenges on Tinian as well? And I know you mentioned you haven't had the opportunity to fly to Rhoda or Tinian, but have you? How has your meetings gone with the resident directors on those islands?
Thank you, Senator, for that question. I actually have not sat down with either the Rhoda or Tinian resident directors yet. As I have said, I have not been able to travel out there due to funding cuts that my department has been asked to reduce, and I do not want to pass any kind of recommendation without personally seeing and being, as the military jargon goes, boots on the ground, see the lay of the land, see exactly what the issues are, and come up with solutions so that we can attack the problem. I do know from conversations with my staff that the island of Rhoda, for example, was plagued with issues such as lack of a quarry, and then moving forward, lack of equipment to actually produce quarried materials. I do know that the Office of Grants Management procured a quarry machine, and it is, I believe, in Rhoda, but I'm not sure if it has been commissioned. As far as the roads, we have moved on some A&E design, and that is moving along. I know Radiocom is supposed to be also working on a road project there, but they are hamstrung by again the resources that's available to them there. So going forward, I do intend to spend more time on Rhoda as well as that of Tinian to understand what is hampering their projects. I just received an email this morning from our Honorable Delegate Gregorio Kilili Camacho Sablan, and he has reported to me that the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2023 under Public Law 117-328, the highway infrastructure programs, he was able to secure $2 million for Rhoda Route 10 drainage improvements and road overlay. So these monies will be coming to us very shortly, and I will have my staff look into getting this project moving. As for Tinian, under the same reporting from Kilili, Tinian Route 205 road and drainage improvements has been awarded $2 million. Saipan Route 302 improvements is $2 million. And Saipan Route 36 Phase 1 construction, which is to complete the roadway, is $4 million, although it is still short. We will be looking for other grants to shore up the difference so that we can complete Route 36.
All right, thank you for those updates. Some of the projects listed under the previous secretary include shipping of used tires. Do you know what that's about?
Yes, I did receive a briefing from Blas Mofnes, the director. I believe we spent upwards of $600,000 to ship out over 8 full containers worth of recycled materials, including used tires that were actually shredded. We do have a shredding machine that's on island and is operational, and it believe it's at the transfer station when in use. Otherwise, it's in storage.
So that that project has been completed.
It's an ongoing project.
Okay, and that's inclusive of this e-waste project?
I believe so. It's all grouped under one contract,
Okay.
I believe.
Thank you. I do want to point out something that you mentioned on your challenges, and I think this was brought up in the budget process last fiscal year. The issue on the engineer has been brought up, and I know you mentioned that the legislature would need to change the statute, but in actuality, when you have the chance, look into 1 CMC 8248, which basically allows for these exempted professions to exceed the salary cap. And so I think that's something that you would have to notify the administration, and then the governor would usually send us that notice to inform us of any exemptions on the salary cap. So I think, and believe we did recommend this to the former secretary, but nothing has been done to date.
Right. The reason why it was brought up is not that we don't have the engineers. We do have really good engineers and architects. I stand fully behind them. The only issue that comes up every now and then is because they lack certification, they lack a license. It's difficult for the department to make recommendations for changes in design, engineering designs that's been brought forth from a firm, for example, because on occasion they bring up the fact that, hey, you guys are not certified, so you shouldn't be making too many corrections. Sometimes our integrity gets put into question. It's almost like the Attorney General's office. There's a law that allows assistant attorney generals to practice under the Attorney General's license. They are not. They haven't passed the bar, but they're allowed to go to court and defend the CNMI without that license, only because they work for the Attorney General's office. We don't have that kind of protection.
In what sense? I mean, I understand. I'm
So
not trying to understand. If
for larger companies, right, for big building construction projects, that's they're pretty efficient. The drawings, everything is done to code and to spec. It's all good. But we're talking about those that within our community that comes up on occasion with sketch pads, right, and we're going to assist in coming up with drawings, or even intergovernmental. Mind you, we don't have a certified PE. So if it's done in-house, it'll still be up to code. But if that building were to, let's say, for some reason be transferred to a private entity, all the certifications would probably need to be redone.
Yeah, and that's why, like I mentioned, you brought up that being a challenge, but having that exemption from the salary cap allows you to hire a certified a
Right.
PE.
So in that respect,
So-
yeah, we're just asking them for the budget that we be allowed to pull within our resources so that we can hire. Because from what I've been told, PEs we won't even be able to get anyone for less than 150,000 per annum.
Okay. I mean, that's something that, I mean, that's great information. We are in the process of a budget revision, and we do have the Ways and Means chair here as well. And so that's something that we can consider. But I think that I know this issue has been brought up several times within the past 2 fiscal years. And every time we brought up the recommendation that, just say, or the exemption that would allow for DPW to hire a PE. Have you studied Tinian's zero waste initiative, and is Saipan? I know this is being this was one of the mayor's projects, but I know that the DPW's department is being aggressive with this as well on Tinian. Has this project? Are you focusing on anything in regards to this kind of project here on Saipan as
Right.
well?
There is a multi-island task force that is reviewing that, and I did have a brief discussion with Mayor O'Don, and I believe what they were trying, the tack they're taking is to bring in an incinerator to deal with their the waste. These are all anecdotal at this point. I don't know if they have any research behind that yet, but I'm open to any suggestion that they may have. And I'm like I said, after I'm able to source funds to travel there, or if the mayor is on island, I would be more than happy to continue the dialogue and throw support. At this point, I'm not going to stop them from what they plan to accomplish in terms of their waste disposal. Mind you, they fall under a different class. They fall under, I believe, like a rural or something a little bit lower, so that they are actually below the radar of US EPA, because it's considered small volume. Here in Saipan, we cannot get away from that, because we're basically a municipal waste. So we have higher standards that we have to follow. The same thing goes with Rhoda.
Thank you for that, Acting Secretary. Again, at this time, I just want to share my appreciation that streamlining your services is something that you're looking into. There is little to no information on anything public works related online, and I hope that's something that you can look into to help streamline services as well as provide more information out to the public. At this time, Madam Chair, I yield.
Thank you, Senator Mangonia. Are there any other members? Recognize Senator Dennis Mendiola.
Good afternoon, Acting Secretary. Again, commend you on your service to the country, to the state.
Thank you.
And you have an extensive record here, and I too want to share my appreciation. I just have a few questions. I know that we sat a few times already up here, and you shared some of your plans. You even brought your subject matter experts, and we spoke a lot about the roads, not just in Rhoda, but in the CNMI and as a whole. So I'm excited about those projects. I just want to make sure that we're holding you to that, should you get confirmed. But I do want to ask about streamlining services, and I just want to get your thoughts on like trying to streamline some of these work that we do that's repetitive in the government, and allowing maybe just one agency to do it, push the funds there, push the personnel there, and allowing them to do that, so that we don't just keep wasting trying to hire more people to just do the same thing, and we're stretching out our budget, just for example cleaning out the shoulders of the road. Right. I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I totally I really agree with you with that, and I have been working with the department and staff. Uh, Everything from the permitting process. If I don't really want to a la carte permits anymore. If a permit can encompass multiple facets, we might as well just issue that so that it's there whether they use it or not. Like for example, because of the CDBG DR grant, a lot of homeowners that are availing of the grants are required to get certification from this department about whether or not their property is within a floodplain. And right now we're providing that to CDBGR. But I've also noticed that, and it's not a lot, but it's should it happen where banks, mortgage companies want to give out loans to private homeowners, they'll be requesting the same documentation for purposes of ensuring that their investment doesn't become unused or unfit, and deemed unusable, right? So that's something we're looking at. And then same thing with the annual building inspection. If we can make it similar to the driver's license, where it's every couple years, or if there's any major changes, that way we can streamline that. I'm all for that. And especially our right of way. Our right of way right now, it's not being implemented. I'm poised to implementing it, even if there is some issues concerning how DPW is to collect these fees, because it is on technically public land, although the department controls the right of way. Some suggestions is either to have DPL deed all right of way over to DPW, so that we can manage that. And if that happens, it actually opens up the door to allowing the federal government, these grants like federal highway, to even use some of these federal monies to make acquisitions. Right now they will not allow us to tap on federal funds to purchase right-of-way land if the land will be deeded to an entity outside of federal highway under our DPW office.
Thank you for that. I agree with you. I'm looking at one of the things that I looked at is, I guess, the amending the regulation on trying to figure out how you guys can make the license more of like a revolving rather than just one-time deal.
Right.
And it can help you generate revenue to continue the services or expand on the services.
Yeah. Thank you, Senator. And I agree with that. I mean, the way my approach to business is, if it doesn't need to be enlarged, then it should not be. If it's efficient and then and we're operating optimally, then we're doing our job. Excess funds, I'm not a fan of, to go on a shopping spree. I'd rather send it to where it needs to go. For example, if we need, once we start collecting right-of-way fees, have to go into a trust account to pay land compensation. I think that's best served if it's to be used for more expansive work on the roadways outside of federal funds. Then we need to do that. We can't just sit around and wait for federal funds to repair our highways. I want to implement more road maintenance. I mean, our community here actually is getting older, and sometimes at night, especially when it's raining, it gets very difficult to see the markers on the road as you're trying to drive home, and that is a risk that is avoidable.
Thank you for that. Just based on your response, I can actually tell that you're pretty experienced in this, just because you're the ideas that you're generating sounds like you're also on the legislative side, not just the secretary, of DPO, because collecting revenue to put into some kind of fund to take care of other issues such as land compensation is actually an idea that's worth diving into, looking into it. So, thank you for that. I want to ask about um, compliance in the landfill. Where we at on
Right now,
compliance?
we are in compliance with the landfill operations. The current operator MES is um, being monitored practically on a daily basis by BCQ. I have not received any negative reports from them, except for some minor ones that are have been rectified, such as for the residential drop-off area. Um, they're dumped at a certain area, but if it's during windy days, some of the light trash, such as papers and plastics, may actually fly and be caught up against the fence line in one corner of the property. But other than that, I haven't heard anything more serious. Uh, but again, the only concern that we have is the major siting permit, the permit that we have with BCQ, which is basically EPA permit, and that's the mandate that we have funds set aside for the maintenance and general upkeep to include the capping. We signed an agreement that we have to set aside funds. Right now, I believe we're at about 6.8 million. And the Secretary of Finance, Acting Secretary Tracy Norita, did say that to me that it's been transferred and is in a trust account, but it's still short. I'm working with the administrator, Eli Cabrera, to assure him, and of course, the central government's eventually going to have to assure uh, um, BCQ, meaning there could possibly be a need for legislative action, because an insurance can be a piece of paper, but really, what's that piece of paper's worth if nobody wants to take a loan out against it? If I show a $15 million surety, can I convert this to cash and pay a contractor? Right, and that's where the problem is right now. Under the CFR code, it needs to be in a trust account, meaning it's going to be in an account that's stagnant. Right, we don't have access to use it in the short term, so that is tough in our economic situation. But there are other options, such as insurance, or even requiring bonding from a firm. There are fees associated with that, but those I've yet to explore in detail, because I do know that our status as creditors, I think we're still slightly above junk status, and plus the inflation and interest rates right now for loans, it's not economically viable.
Thank you for that. Now, this is really, I guess, I'm going to talk about heavy equipment for both Rhoda and Tinian, and I know that you stated that you have not been there. So the question is really, what is the plan to leverage our resources to help our municipality out? You talked about the quarry, for example, in Rhoda. We talked about some of our heavy equipment that have been down in Tinian as well as Rhoda, and I know we have the same problem here in Saipan. So I'm just interested in what kind of plan do you have in store to actually try and attack this? Because buying a payloader or dump truck for that, it's not just a $20,000, $30,000 piece of equipment. So I know it's going to be challenging in the next year, especially given
Right.
the financial circumstances.
Right. Thank you, sir. And yeah, it goes a little bit beyond that, especially for Rhoda and Tinian, because it's one thing to buy heavy equipment, and it's another issue to try to maintain that equipment. Equipment breaks down quite frequently based on usage. So that's another component that hasn't even been discussed yet. But I've asked Epi Cabrera, to keep an eye out for grant opportunities that um, I, I may be able to focus in on and assist. Yeah, I'm not an expert in grant writing, but I have taken courses in it, so I know where we need to go. If I need to tap on certain subject matter experts, I know how to get those guys online to move in that direction. Short of a straight out legislative appropriation, it's really grants. The third option is raising fees. That's just basically only three ways to generate funds for equipment purchases, right? It's either through the legislative body, either delegation or the body itself, through grants or through fees, short of saying taxes. But like for example, the solid waste revolving fund. I know it's a lifeline that needs to be used just to shore up the rest of this fiscal year, and I understand that. I'm just as excited as you are. I don't want to get over this confirmation hearing just to go sit in my sofa and actually it's not a sofa, it's a very old vinyl chair and stare out the window. I can't do that. I get restless. So
Thank you for that. I've seen you work, and I think that you probably have like a composure to or composure with trying to get tasks done. So I'm not too worried about you sitting on a sofa. I think you're going to be here a lot, asking for funding, asking the chairman, like he said, the chairman of Ways and Means is right here. So, or fiscal affairs for that matter. So, at this point, I don't have any other questions. I yield for now, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Mendiola. I have a few questions. Your resume states that you were the CEO of Imperial Pacific International.
I was
Can you tell us how long you were in that position?
a whole year.
I'm sorry?
Practically. 1 whole year,
One whole year.
surprisingly.
Can you tell us a little bit about your role as a CEO? What exactly was your?
Well, the role of CEO for IPI really is all encompassing all aspects of the casino. Um, Unfortunately, the casino was shut down due to COVID directive by then Governor Ralph Torres. And when I stepped in, I was fortunate in that respect where I didn't have to deal with the casino side of the mountainous of issues confronting IPI. I dealt mainly with payroll operations, lawsuits, the real administrative part. I did tell my employers that if IPI would have come back from and be able to restart casino operations, I would gladly step down because that's not my expertise. I'm not going to pretend that I'm an expert in casino operations. I was mainly dealing with the regulatory aspects, the violations from both locals, meaning municipal, state, and federal, and most especially payroll. I really felt for the employees of IPI. I wanted them to get their salaries, which they did. I believe pretty much all of them have received their salaries. Those that did not are receiving it through a court order that was adjudicated. I believe their only issue right now is just the benefit side, which is not really covered under the U.S. wage an hour. That's something that they would have to.
Thank you. My next question was supposed to be, were you able to resolve some of the issues you faced when you got into the position of CEO, and
I did.
you mentioned
actually.
some that you were able to get the laborers their salary.
Mhm.
What about the court cases?
Yeah, I was successfully able to adjudicate many of them, and the big ones, which kind of lagged behind, because again, it's all about good lawyering skills. Just dragging things in court, um, appealing, and going through that whole process. So um, it was very draining, but I thought that, of course, the legal system is the way it is, and I respected that. Everything was done in accordance with rules and procedures of the respective courts. So with that aspect, yes, all the court cases that I was able to settle, I did settle.
Thank you for that. I'll yield to Senator Paul Manglonia at this time, but I do have more questions for you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Like former Congressman Felipe Atalik and everyone in the gallery, um, I too know well the secretary, and I'm very happy that he has been appointed to be the head of DPW. I'm so glad for that appointment. So I'll just make my questions very easy. No. Secretary, you mentioned about the crusher equipment for Rhoda, right? And I believe that was from a federal grant.
Right.
As you know, Route 10 from the airport down to the village was first bidded out 5-6 years ago, and just when they were ready to proceed, the last crusher company shut down. They had to rebid again the whole project so that they can account for imported materials, aggregates, manufactured sand from Saipan. And by the time that's done, and in the meantime, the government is trying to get to a grant a crusher equipment. Uh, the price of that project, Route 10 improvement, kind of double up, and so we know the effects of uh, uh, building a road on Rhoda or from a remote place where they do not have all the necessary equipments. So the problem now is the equipment has been sitting on Rhoda for maybe 3, 4, 5 months, still at the stevedoring. God knows how much they will charge the CNMI government for storage every day at the harbor. But I know we raised this up to you, but I'm just pointing this out, and I hope that you can continue to assist us in trying to find an appropriate location to put the crusher so that they can operate it, and let's get back let's get it back online. No, so thank you for recognizing the importance of that equipment and its significance and how it can affect the whole project and the cost. And so speaking about roads, um, can I ask, is it Public Works jurisdiction, um, these encroachment issues on roadways? It is, right?
Yes.
So, so for example, the road leading from Route 10 all the way to Swimming Hole, as I mentioned to you, has there been any development there? The landowners have closed the road, and uh, I'm just concerned about whether there's money there for land compensation, or is there now a smooth coordination with DPL so that we can land exchange these people so that we can open the road? Because I feel that, you know, a private landowner should not just be able to shut a road down and then to force the government to compensate. I think we should be ahead of the ball game, right? and start trying to locate or identify who the landowners so that we can open them up, because the road to Swimming Hole is actually a tourist road. It's a
Right.
beautiful scenic road. And have you heard recently? What are they gonna do with that road? Because it has been shut down for 2 to 3 years already.
Yeah. Thank you, Senator. I believe that issue might be under the purview of the Attorney General's office. My understanding is that that family that the property in question did receive payment, a scheduled payment, which was they did take. Now, my just loose understanding is that the administrator may have passed away, and they're in the process of um,
Okay,
assigning
so
another administrator. So that administrator is
okay.
pretty much
So
going
I appreciate,
the beginning.
Secretary, if there's somebody at the office that constantly pushes this on a regular basis and not to follow up and then leave it for 6 months again. Not so, because I bring that up because even here on Saipan, what's the issue with Montapocha, for example? Is there land encroachment issues there that we cannot push that project? As well as the Galaidi Road going up from Navy Hill to Montapocha.
In the month, right? If
Uh,
I may, Senator, the Montepocho Road project, the A&D is finally completed. It landed on my desk a couple weeks ago, about a week ago. So it's ready to go. The problem now is how to get funding. My engineers had estimated it to be $14 million to construct, and then we are. I did ask through Kilili's office if we can assist with upwards of $52 million total package for all the roads that are what we call shovel ready. And Montepocho actually is a shovel ready project.
So there's no encroachment issue there
Yeah,
now.
it's already been, except for a few. They're all aligned. The process again is we will identify the property with the assistance with either a DLNR for the mapping or DPL, and then we certify, shoot it up to the governor's office, who will then concur, and then it will be forwarded on to DPL.
What about Texas Road? It's all clear also, the
I
encroachment?
don't recall Texas Road. Is it clear? So there is an encroachment issue that hasn't been resolved.
Yeah, because that's would be a very good road to actually open up.
And it
so-
is a priority, but again, it's when it comes to these encroachments, that's why I'm after this hearing in the next few days, I will be personally sitting with Attorney General Edward Mandabusan himself to discuss the right of way, because it really needs to move forward.
And so it's Galaidi Road, right? You
So is
know.
Galaidi.
Okay, thank you. Going to Texas, I mean to Route 36. The first phase will be done on time, right? And then there'll be
It's actually
another.
the reverse, Senator.
I'm sorry.
The first phase actually is the Bird Island to the cross, and we went reverse because it was easier. We had the funding. We
Okay,
wanted to tackle that culvert, the so-called bridge.
So we have exhausted or contracted out the whatever total amount, 17 million or so, the first
That's to
allotment.
R&B, right?
Yeah, and so now you have another 4 million for
It's
another.
actually, I believe the cost is about 8 million.
So the one from Kilili that you just mentioned, the
It's
4
only
million.
partial, yeah.
So you cannot bid that out
Not yet.
to proceed with that 4 million
Until we find
other additional.
sources.
Okay. And Secretary, what's the status of the again in the transition report, the right of way manual? Can you briefly talk
Right,
about that?
right. Like I said, the right of way manual hasn't been implemented with, and part of the issue was because of the AG's concern about whether or not DPL, or I'm sorry, a DPW has jurisdiction over the properties. It's something that is still a work in progress, and I want to not get that thing out of the way within the next couple months. Um, I'm hoping to get a draft promulgation of rules ready within 30 days for review and then out to the public. So it's something that is on my priority list right now.
And along with that, can you also verify exactly with DPL how much money they have for land compensation? Is it zero really, or is some people have already been approved for compensation, and there's been held up somewhere? You know, they're pointing figures to the AG, pointing figures to DPL. Can we get to the bottom of that and find out how much is there available?
Sure.
And then what are other sources that we can look at so we can supplement, find ways, or even DPL? Maybe there should be a meeting with DPL so we can address all these encroachment issue. No, Secretary.
Right. Yes. Yes, Senator. That will be something that I will engage with the acting secretary, Terry Santos.
Thank you. Just on Congressman Donald's discussion on the professional engineer, I cannot overemphasize the need to hire one, and I don't think that there is a problem with funding because, as you know, all these projects, CIP projects, I think we can justify using capital improvement money to hire engineers, inspectors, and professional engineers, especially. I say that because if we have a professional engineer under public works, I think it will be a good recruitment tool for us because, as you know, a newly graduate engineer, they need to serve under a professional engineer for 4 years before they can even take the engineering examination, the PE. So in order for us to get more local engineers who are off island to come back, I think they will be happy to return for average salary if they know that they'll be working under a professional engineer. I know Mr. Gani is doing a great job, and but I think that we need a professional engineer in public works so that these young engineers can be certified. Certified that they can take the PE. It's a way for us to kind of encourage our local students. So please look into that, and I think that shouldn't
I
be
have
hard.
a quicker solution, Senator.
Please elaborate.
Yeah, I'm sure Mr. Bautista, I know these guys, these gentlemen, Mr. Bautista and Mr. Salazar, are practicing engineers in their home country. We're still holding a valid license, so a simple legislation to allow them to be permitted would solve that problem.
I don't know whether that is.
I know it's
It
been
could be
done-
locally also, but
I
it
know
could
it's
be.
been done with the Bar Association before.
So that's something we should look into. You mean amending our law, but I guess that's not a bad idea to do it immediately, but something that in the long run we need to consider. No, so thanks for the recommendation, Secretary. Do we have enough engineers right now at Public Works?
No. I've asked the House to insert additional NOPs. I am in need of hiring one electrical engineer. Right now, I cannot afford to hire a PE electrical engineer, but I do understand that we might potentially have one electrical engineer from the Philippines that's currently on island with a valid work authorization that's willing to take on that task if this body would approve the NOPs.
I am concerned about the staffing of the Technical Services Division, because we have so many CIP projects. I know with CDBG, and I know they're not under your department, but I know that the government is bogged down with all these capital improvement projects. And so um, even just the procurement process, right? There's so much protest going
Of
on and
course.
delay in the project. And speaking of protests, I understand the contract for MSC expires in July. So is the RFP out for that already? So that and by the way, that has been signed even under protest, right? And the contract will be up soon. But
You're talking about MES.
I'm talking about the landfill.
Yeah,
Yeah,
MES, not MSC.
not MEC.
MSC, I'm not familiar with MSC. MES?
MES. Okay.
Thank you.
So have we put out an RFP for that?
It's in the works right now. We are looking at it. I have not received guidance yet from the governor's office as to the disposition, whether I am to issue an extension or to RFP it out.
Okay. And the $52 million, I'm still not clear on that. That came from EPA for landfill projects, right? Is that under your? It could be under OPD, or is it under?
Right now, we're waiting for the master plan on how to deal with the cinema-wide refuse. And before that can be unlocked, we need that final report. And the company that's been awarded to handle that is in the final phases of completing that report. It is a required report before EPA can authorize the releasing of funds.
Oh, but do you know if that funding can be used to tap for this contract, for example, by MES? I'm just
I'll
curious.
find out the details. I've yet to attend the first meeting of that task force, but I will get
So can
an
can
update.
you assist us also with the issues surrounding this funding?
Sure.
So
Yes.
so we know, because I'm looking also at the Rhoda landfill issue. Actually, it's a dump issue, no, because it's not even a landfill. So
Right. It's an open dump.
and I understand that those sources can be tapped for that also. But
Yes.
so we appreciate information surrounding that funding and that federal grant, no. Yeah. The because how are you gonna fund the 4.5 to cap cell one?
Right now, based on the acting secretary's assurance to me and the Munis report, we do have about 6.5 million in that account prior to the not this body per se, but the past legislature that passed the Appropriations Act that suspended the earmarking. So prior to the suspension, it did accumulate up to about 6.5 million rough. So that's there. So we're ready to go. But the thing here is that under the Code of Federal Regulations, we're required to have 100%. We need to have the total estimate cost, because this is for 5 cells. It goes even into the future, which I find a little bit harsh, but it's in the code. So it's something that we just have to work with BCQ. And our federal partners to try to give us some flexibility. So if for example the legislature were to pass an enabling act that says that the CNMI will make good on the capping, this 15 million, kind of like an assure or the agreement that was made between the Betty Johnson case and the different offices of the government, right? And as long as there's something in law, I think we should be able to get away with in lieu of putting actual cash in a bank sitting and not really working for the community. I'll give you my thoughts on that.
Thank you. Just one last final from under the energy division in your transition re- report. You mentioned on the energy division the office lacks on island staff for the islands of Rhoda and Tinian for the outreach programs effectiveness. Isn't that coordinated with the mayor so that they assist? I know Mrs. Inos is here, but
Yeah,
I thought that
that was
so.
right. There were different team members in the transition. My transition committee at the time. That's their recommendation. I did not question their thought process.
The mayor's office,
But
right?
yes,
Or the
I mean,
public.
I'm more than willing to revisit the transition report and seeing if there's ways to deal with that. If to include also uh, partially funding, I guess, staffing. It'll all depend on the grant parameters, of course. So it's a discussion I'm going to have with Miss Enos. And if
Okay.
that's what the delegation or the Rhoda delegation, Tinian delegation respectfully wants, we can come up with something.
Okay, Suzumosi, Secretary, thank you for accepting this responsibility to head the PW.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Paul. I recognize Senator Donald Mangonia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to go back to one of your requests. You said how many additional? I see seven.
Seven.
How many? Is that all for? Sorry, what's the breakdown of the seven?
It's 3 for roads and grounds. The rest are TSD. I may not actually fill all of it, but instead of coming back again and asking, because I'm not asking for funding, I will fund it internally however I can. So, like right now, for example, my right of way, I have 2 staff in there. They're actually not right of way staff, dedicated staffers. They're actually under TSD under building code, or they're I think building inspectors. So I want to return those positions back and have those 2 persons given a position of right of way that it's consonant with the job they're doing, so that I can right size the different divisions in the department, because there are some internal laterals just on by memos. And some of these people, they really need to get a permanent position. It's about 80% of my staff are civil service, and I really need to just kind of organize the structure. It's nothing more than housekeeping, just to get everybody aligned
Okay.
properly.
Well, yeah, I just wanted to clarify because, while we are not funding it now, how much would this, be
It's just a
will we
position
look
that's
at?
unfunded, right?
Right, but next fiscal year, what will be the fiscal impact of
I
the
will
seven?
provide you with
Right.
the funding source at that time.
Okay. One more thing I just wanted to make a recommendation of, and it's regarding the solid waste hazardous bay. I know this has been an issue for quite some time, and if you can work with maybe OPM and try to see how we can kind of incorporate that into
Yes.
their salary, as opposed to waiting for the revolving fund account to have enough to pay what is rightfully owed to these solid waste employees. As a matter of fact, uh, next pay period is when they'll just now be getting their 2019 hazardous pay. We're already 3 years out, and so if you can work with OPM to try to see how we can kind of get that incorporated already into their salary, as opposed to having this set aside and
Right. So in my the department's hierarchy or structure, Peter Camacho Administrative Services actually was a line division, and I've actually took him out and moved him up to flow right underneath my office, because it is technically challenging department, and I want to give my fair time with each division. I can't just on the fly work with one division and ignore the others. I want to spend in detail and in depth with each individual division the issues, and that issue actually is something that came up on my desk, but it was just fairly recently. So I will be coming around with and sitting down with the director, Mr. Mofnes, to deal with that, because I believe some employees, like from Road and Tinian, are having the same issues working at their respective dumps.
Yeah.
So
Thank you. I appreciate that. And, because we do have that legislation in committee right now in regards to the solid waste expenditure, this will kind of get messy in regards to how.
today's Tuesday. I should have an answer for you probably no later than Friday at the latest.
Yeah.
If that's if
Yeah.
that's okay.
And so I want to make sure that, as we consider that bill, even to just look at that issue with
What's the bill number?
I'll just bump up that email I sent requesting for the comments. I don't have it with me right now.
I do have one comment request on my desk, but I don't recall which it was for. So I'm not sure if it was yours or not, because I get a stack practically every day.
I understand.
Documents.
Yeah, that was all I have left. On a side note, I just wanted to bring this up because I was a victim a couple months back, and then last week I saw a victim. There's this big pothole by San Vicente Children's Park that's been there for months. It's almost a foot deep and right on the shoulder. So sorry, I just wanted to bring that up because
no.
When I saw someone that was a victim last week, I knew how that felt, and so I'm surprised no one. I mean, some people who live in the area didn't notice it until I mentioned it. But thank you. With all that said and done, and with like I mentioned earlier, having to work with you in assisting the delegation with matters. When the time comes, Madam Chair, whether we can do it today, I would like to register my support for Mr. Yumul's confirmation. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Manglonia. My turn. We've been talking all afternoon about right-of-ways, and my question deals with the right-of-way issue. As you mentioned, Public Law 20-52 transferred that responsibility to the Department of Public Works. It was under the Department of Public Lands, and I'm very concerned about it. And I know you said you're meeting with the Attorney General to start promulgating the rules for it. When do you anticipate completing the rules, putting it up on the register for 30 days for comments, and then it becomes a law? Because every year since the passage of 20-52, CNMI government has been losing $300,000 per year, at least 300,000. So if you could put that to the forefront. But first of all, when do you anticipate completing the promulgation of the rules, or at least a draft of it?
Okay. Thank you, Senator. That's a very good question. The simplest thing I can do, I mean, just from my prior experience being former legislators, I'm just going to go straight to DPL's rules and regs that covers the renting, permitting, leasing of right-of-way at the time, clean it up, and make that as a draft promulgation of rules for DPW, and making some tweaks. Of course, the Attorney General's office may take 30 days to hash it out, maybe a couple weeks. I'm not sure, but assuming it takes them 30 days to do it, and then another 90 days for it to be published before it is adopted. That would be your earliest timeline. I expect to have a meeting with the Attorney General's office in the next 2 days. Now, if the concern from the Attorney General's office and DPL is because of the fact that, or their claims that DPW may not even have full authority to collect the fees, as long as I promulgate the rules to enforce the right of way and the funds go into a holding account, it really doesn't bother me that the account is not going to be used by DPW. Again, I'm not in it to try to hoard the money. If I'm allowed to take a portion just to cover my actual expense, my staff, my enforcement officer, probably just one person, right? And a small office expense. The rest can go where it needs to go. If it needs to go to MPOT, it can go to MPOT. If there's legislation that sends it to pay land compensation, and that's fine as well. And so I encourage this body to look at it in totality. It's going to be a challenge, of course, but it's not unattainable. You can even legislate to have all right of way properties be deeded over, and that'll solve it right off the bat. If CPA and DLNR that have properties deeded to them can actually rent these properties out, then we can do the exact same thing.
Thank you. And I do agree with you that, and don't agree necessarily with public lands about the collection of the fees, because you're already collecting tipping fees at the landfill. So I don't see the hindrance of
the difference,
DPW.
right? Thank you, Senator. The biggest difference that we all need to be aware of is that DPL is a creation of the Constitution, and it's very clear that they get to make money. Departments are not authorized by law to make money. It's only what's needed to operate. We're not a for-profit department. That would be illegal. That's my opinion, and I believe that holds true. So again, I'm not here to make the department the biggest department in the CNMI. I just want to make sure that these programs are operating. I want every program in the department to be run efficiently, and that's basically the bottom line.
Thank you for that. You're right. It's ripe for another conversation, whether it's with DPL and Public Works together in one room. My other question is regarding universal garbage. That issue came up in recent years, and I believe there was contract out to formulate some kind of plan to implement universal garbage collection here in Saipan. Do you know anything about that? Can you speak to that particular program?
I did. Thank you for that question. I did inquire about that program, but I believe they've only met less than a handful of times, and they don't really have anything in writing. But the way the landfill really should be treated, especially with regards to commercial operators, trash operators, right? You don't really need a universal garbage collection. What we need is more of an organized way of these companies that are in the business of collecting refuse to properly segregate. Because it really bothers me when I see cans and plastic bottles, anything that's recyclable ending up at the landfill, because like I said earlier, 80% of the landfill cell number 1 is full. So if we don't put any control measures, like more strict measures in segregating, we might have to cap it within 1 year or less. But if we do promote recycling, it might last another 2.5 years, maybe even longer, because the only thing that's going to go up there is biodegradable items. So what we really need to look at is to has asked the question amongst these trash collector refuse businesses, do you have a sorting facility? Because if you go around the neighborhood and just pick up trash and shoot it straight up to the landfill, I will put money down that at least 30% of the trash is actually recyclable items. They should actually just bring it to a recycling facility. But the best way that it's being handled in California, that I have very intimate knowledge of, is segregation by the customers themselves. Cans, paper, and then all others, so that the sorting is done at the home, at the business. The easiest thing to implement is the businesses. All cardboard boxes needs to be segregated from the trash bin, and that cannot end up at the landfill. But if a trash collector comes and picks up the cardboard boxes, goes to the next customer and picks up regular trash, then you just defeat the purpose of segregation.
Understood, but I think for many years here too, there wasn't a recycling center per se.
Right. So now we do have that, the transfer station in Lower Base that's doing it, and we're my Blas's team
And maybe
is
perhaps
doing-
your department can actually start the campaign for reuse, recycle, and
That's why
I mean, I've seen many promotions on it,
Right.
and you're right. It depends on the consumer. I think for many years, one of the complaints we've heard was, especially with respect to aluminum products, it just wasn't worth it.
but
Now the grants office is piloting a program
Right.
that makes it worth it. And I used to recycle when I was living in Hawaii, and it was worth it to at least pay 5 cents per bottle or per can.
And I do thank the grants office for making that project available. But what did disturb me was when Mr. Cabrera said that he took it away, quote unquote, from DPW because, for lack of a better word, he was basically alluding to the fact that either we didn't do a good job about it, or we really neglected the program. Hence, why this thing's going to roll out without DPW's coordination. So it is.
Do you know who he's partnering with? Which office?
BCQ,
BCQ, okay.
CRM.
Okay.
So I do want to sit down with him and say, look, there
I
may be
suggest you
issues
do.
in the past, but we really need to fix this and get back.
One last question. I don't want to hold everyone here too long. You mentioned something about an intern practicing, for returning students. And I think my recommendation is, and I made this recommendation when the nominee for the scholarship board was here before this committee. I've been asking them to create a pipeline for graduating students from the CNMI who were recipients of either SHEFA or CNMI scholarship, to create that pipeline so that a year before they graduate, they already know what their majors are, coordinate with the respective departments, to place these students back here in our government. And I think that's because they're having a hard time collecting the scholarship awards pursuant to their MOA or MOU. So that's one of the ways, and I hope they can finally implement something like that that would help the government. There's many JVAs that I see coming out from personnel, OPM, and that's one way, is to capture these graduating students from the United States to come back here and serve out their work service pursuant to their MOA. So you mentioned about an intern for DPW, and I'd like to recommend that you meet up with the scholarship office
I will.
for that.
Thank you for that.
That's all I have that was pressing or of concern to me. Are there any other members who would like to I recognize Senator Paul
Just
Maloney.
a quick one on Route 100 in Rhode, no Secretary.
Yes.
I know that our mayor has found some funding for drainage along Route 100, but later on we would need to start paving along the road there. And again, I just bring it up at this point to emphasize the help that we really need from Public Works is to identify encroachment areas along Route 100. It's a very beautiful scenic road around the island, perimeter road, and the tourists like to drive around. And we want to start, continuing the paving of the road around the island. It has stopped for more than 15, 20 years already. And I think one of the main reasons was the private lands along the way. But I know that there are stretches of a mile here or 2 miles there, and we can start working along the perimeter road. I think it will go a long way in completing the road. So I just want to point that out. And then finally, this is for the committee in another committee in the Senate. But I just want to ask you, and you don't have to answer, but can we get a report from Building Safety Code as far as the IPI building down there? I know I wrote a letter back in February of 2020. I wrote it to the Casino Commission, and I was questioning the building's structural integrity. And in that letter, actually, I asked the commissioner to look at the building's actual structural construction to ensure that there are no major structural misalignment or defects. Building design calculations are recomputed, factoring in the actual field conditions, all certifications of concrete tests and column and beam connections, da 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 da. I can provide a copy of that letter.
Yes,
I bring
please.
this up because we are, reviewing this whole IPI issue, trying to move forward. With the the casino industry matters, and it will help us if whatever reports maybe um, or documentation that would help us say that the building is structurally sound, because before we move forward, that's one of the first thing that they ask us, is that building structurally sound? So I guess public work had a role back then when it was under construction. So any way you can help us with documentation, we appreciate. Thank
Yes,
you.
I will. Thank you for that comment, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Paul. Is there anything else from other members? If not, Mr. Yumul, you are dismissed for today.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Next item up on the agenda is miscellaneous. I do want to announce that our next EAGI public hearing will be conducted this Thursday to examine the nomination of Ms. Teresita Santos, nominated for the Department of Public Lands, and Mr. Rufo Mafnas, nominated to be a member of the CUC board. Is there anything else from the other members? Recognize Senator Donald McLeod.
Additionally, the fiscal affairs will be meeting tomorrow after the Senate session, so we'll be in the afternoon.
Okay.
Thank you.
If there is nothing else, can I get a motion to adjourn today's meeting? Do I hear a second? Motion has been made to adjourn today's meeting, and it has been seconded. Are there any questions on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. This meeting is hereby adjourned. It is now 4:05 p.m.